The car door slammed, the engine roared, and the taillights disappeared into the blizzard. Grace stood alone, 8 months pregnant, 15 degrees below zero. No coat, no phone signal, no hope. Her husband had just driven away, left her to die in the snow, with his mistress sitting in the passenger seat. But here is what Harrison Caldwell did not know. Here is the twist that would destroy his entire world. The state trooper patrolling that empty road, the one who would find Grace minutes before she froze to death, he was her brother, and he was about to arrest the most powerful man in the county. What happens next will shock you. A mother-in-law who betrays her own son, a dead woman whose ghost haunts this case, a web of lies worth $200 million, and a pregnant wife who refuses to be a victim. This is not just a story about betrayal. This is a story about justice, about survival, about a woman who lost everything and came back stronger than anyone imagined. By the end, you will cheer, you will cry, and you will never forget Grace Mitchell. Stay with me. This story is worth every minute. The car doors slammed shut. The engine roared to life. Tires crunched against snow, then faded into nothing. Grace Mitchell stood alone in front of the abandoned gas station, her belly stretched tight at 8 months pregnant. The blizzard howled around her like a living thing. The temperature had dropped to 15 degrees below zero. She watched the taillights of the Mercedes S-Class disappear into the white curtain of snow. Her husband, Harrison Caldwell III, CEO of Caldwell Industries. He had just left her here to die. The wind cut through her thin coat like a knife. Harrison had not let her grab her warm jacket from the back seat. He had not let her take her purse. He had simply stopped the car, told her to get out, and driven away. Grace pulled out her phone with shaking hands. No signal. She checked again. Still nothing. She locked the screen, unlocked it, checked the signal bars. Nothing. Locked it again, unlocked it again, as if this time would be different. Her teeth chattered so hard she thought they might crack. The baby kicked inside her, strong and insistent, as if asking what was happening. "I know, sweetheart," Grace whispered through blue lips. "I know." She turned to look at the King station behind her. Boarded windows, rusted pumps. A faded sign that once said "Last Stop Gas" now read only "Este as." Nobody had been here in years. Nobody would come. The argument in the car replayed in her mind. Harrison's face twisted with rage, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his voice cold as the storm outside. "You ruined my life," he had said. "Everything was perfect before you got pregnant. I told you to get rid of it. But no, you had to keep it. You had to destroy everything." Grace had tried to reason with him. She had tried to explain that this was their child, their family. But Harrison had stopped the car suddenly. Right here, right in front of this abandoned building. "Get out," he had said. "Harrison, please. The storm is getting worse. We are in the middle of nowhere." "I said get out. I am 8 months pregnant. I could die out here. The baby could die." Harrison had looked at her then, really looked at her, and what she saw in his eyes made her blood run colder than any blizzard could. "That is the point," he had said. Then he reached across her and opened her door. The wind and snow rushed in. Before Grace could react, Harrison pushed her. She stumbled out of the car, catching herself before she fell. The door slammed, the engine revved, and her husband drove away. Grace started walking. There was nothing else to do. The road stretched endlessly in both directions, white on white. She picked a direction and moved. Her feet were already going numb in her thin shoes. The baby kicked again, harder this time. "I am sorry," Grace said to her unborn child. "I am so sorry. I chose the wrong man to be your father. But I will not let anything happen to you. I promise." She did not know how she would keep that promise. She could barely feel her fingers anymore. Her face had gone numb. Every breath hurt. The snow pelted her skin like tiny needles. "This is how I die," she thought. 8 months pregnant, alone, abandoned by the man who promised to love me forever. She thought about her mother. Patricia would be devastated. She thought about her brother Nathan. He would blame himself somehow. He had always been protective of her. He had warned her about Harrison from the beginning. Something is off about him, Nathan had said 3 years ago, before the wedding. I cannot put my finger on it. But be careful, Grace. She had not listened. She had been too in love, too dazzled by Harrison's charm, his wealth, his promises. Now she was paying the price. Her legs gave out. Grace fell to her knees in the snow. The cold seeped through her dress, her skin, her bones. She tried to stand but could not. Her body had stopped cooperating. Please, she whispered, to God, to the universe, to anyone who might be listening. Please, not my baby. Take me if you have to, but save my baby. Headlights appeared in the distance. Grace's heart leaped. A car. Someone was coming. She raised her arm and waved, but her movements were weak and slow. The hypothermia was setting in. The headlights grew closer. The shape of the vehicle emerged through the snow. Grace's failing eyes caught something on top of the car. Flashing lights, blue and red. A police cruiser, a state trooper's vehicle. The car stopped. The door opened. A uniformed officer stepped out into the storm. Grace? That voice, she knew that voice. Nathan? Her brother ran toward her. He dropped to his knees beside her and pulled her into his arms. She felt his warmth through his uniform jacket. She felt his heart pounding against her cheek. Grace, what happened? What are you doing out here? Where is your car? Where is Harrison? The questions tumbled out of him in a rush. Grace tried to answer, but her lips would not move properly. Everything was starting to fade. Cold, she managed to say. So cold. Nathan scooped her up in his arms. He carried her to his patrol and placed her gently in the front seat. He cranked the heat to maximum. He took off his own jacket and wrapped it around her. Stay with me, Grace. Stay with me. I am getting you to the hospital. He left me, Grace whispered. Harrison, he left me here. Nathan's face changed. Something dark passed through his eyes. Something dangerous. What do you mean he left you? He stopped the car, told me to get out. Then he drove away. In this storm? With you 8 months pregnant? Grace nodded weakly. The warmth was starting to seep back into her body. It hurt. Pins and needles everywhere. But pain meant she was alive. He wanted me to die, she said. The words sounded unreal even to her own ears. He wanted me and the baby to die. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. His jaw was set. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tight Grace could see his knuckles turning white. I am calling this in, he said finally. Then I am taking you to the hospital. He picked up his radio and spoke into it. His voice was calm and professional, but Grace could hear the rage shimmering beneath the surface. Dispatch, this is Unit 7. I have found a female victim of abandonment on Route 47 near the old Miller gas station. 8 months pregnant. Severe hypothermia. I am transporting to County General. Be advised, suspect is Harrison Caldwell, driving a black Mercedes S-Class, may be intoxicated. Consider armed and dangerous. The radio crackled back. Copy that, Unit 7, back up en route. We have a BOLO out on the Mercedes. Nathan put the car in drive and pulled onto the road. Grace leaned her head against the warm air vent. Her baby kicked again. Still alive. They were both still alive. Nathan, she said quietly. Thank you. Her brother reached over and took her hand. I should have been there. I should have protected you. You could not have known. I knew something was wrong with him. I knew it from the start. I should have done more. Grace closed her eyes. The heater hummed. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm against the snow. For the first time in hours, she felt safe. Then Nathan's radio crackled to life again. Unit 7, we have visual on the suspect's vehicle. Black Mercedes S-Class, license plate Charlie Alpha Lima 372. Vehicle appears to be stuck in a snowdrift on Route 47, approximately 3 miles north of your location. Nathan's expression hardened. He pressed the accelerator. Copy that, dispatch. I am en route. Grace opened her eyes. Nathan, what are you doing? My job, he said, and maybe a little more. The Mercedes appeared through the snow a few minutes later. It was angled sideways in the road, back tires spinning uselessly in a deep drift. A figure stood outside the car, trying to dig it free with his bare hands. Harrison. Nathan pulled the patrol car up behind the Mercedes. The blue and red lights cut through the darkness like judgment itself. Harrison turned around. The headlights illuminated his face. Grace watched his expression shift from confusion to recognition to fear. Through the Mercedes windows, she could see someone else inside the car. A woman. Dark hair, red lipstick, expensive clothes. Vivian Drake, Harrison's secretary. The woman Grace had suspected for months but never had proof of. Now she had all the proof she needed. Nathan stepped out of the patrol car. His hand rested on his service weapon. His voice carried clearly through the storm. "Harrison Caldwell, step away from the vehicle." Harrison straightened up. He tried to smile, tried to be charming. "Nathan, brother-in-law, what a coincidence running into you out here. I said step away from the vehicle." Harrison complied, raising his hand slightly. "Listen, there has been a misunderstanding. Grace and I had a little argument. She got out of the car on her own. I was coming back for her. I just got stuck in this damn snow." Nathan walked toward him slowly. His face was stone. "You were coming back for her," Nathan repeated. "Your pregnant wife, who you left in a blizzard 3 miles away, and you were coming back." "Exactly." Harrison's smile widened. "See? Just a misunderstanding." Nathan stopped directly in front of him. For a moment, the two men just stared at each other. The snow swirled around them like a white curtain. Then Nathan leaned in close. His voice dropped low. "I found her on her knees in the snow. She could barely speak. She was minutes away from dying. My sister, your wife, the mother of your unborn child." Harrison's smile faltered. "She told me what you said," Nathan continued, "that you wanted her to die, that you wanted the baby to die. She is lying. She is confused. The cold must have affected her mind." "Is that so?" Nathan stepped back. His face was calm now, professional. "Sir, I am going to need you to take a breathalyzer test." "What? That is ridiculous. I have not been drinking." "Sir, I can smell alcohol on your breath from here. You will take the test, or I will arrest you for refusal." Harrison's mask finally cracked. The charm evaporated. The real man emerged. "Do you know who I am?" he snarled. "I am Harrison Caldwell III. I own half this county. I will have your badge. I will have your career. I will destroy you." Nathan smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Sir, you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." The breathalyzer beeped. Nathan read the result. His eyebrows rose slightly. ".12, he said, well above the legal limit. Harrison's face went white. "That machine must be broken. I only had 1 drink. Maybe 2. "Sir, you are under arrest for driving under the influence. You are also under arrest for reckless endangerment of a dependent. Given that your pregnant wife nearly died because of your actions, I expect the DA will add attempted murder to those charges." "This is insane. You cannot do this. I will have my lawyers here in an hour." Nathan pulled out his handcuffs. The metal clinked in the cold air. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." "Nathan, wait." Harrison's voice changed, became smooth again, persuasive. "Listen, we are family. Let us work this out. I can make this worth your while. How does $50,000 sound? Cash. Tonight, we forget this whole thing happened." Nathan paused. For a moment, Grace's heart stopped. Would her brother take the bribe? Would Harrison's money win again? Then Nathan stepped forward and spun Harrison around. He pushed him against the Mercedes and cuffed his hands behind his back. $50,000, Nathan said quietly into Harrison's ear. "That is what my sister's life is worth to you. That is what your unborn child's life is worth. I want you to remember this moment, Harrison, because it is the moment everything changed for you." The passenger door of the Mercedes opened. Vivian Drake stepped out in her designer heels. Her makeup was perfect. Her expression was pure rage. "What is going on here?" she demanded. "You cannot arrest him. Do you have any idea who he is?" "Ma'am, I need you to stay back. This is police brutality. I am a lawyer. I know my rights. I am recording this." She pulled out her phone and pointed it at Nathan. He did not flinch. "Ma'am, you are welcome to record. In fact, I encourage it. The footage will be useful evidence at the trial." "What trial? You have nothing. I have a man who abandoned his pregnant wife in a blizzard. I have a blood alcohol level of .12. I have an attempted bribe of a police officer, and I have a witness who can testify to all of it. Nathan nodded toward his patrol car, that witness being the victim herself. Vivian's eyes followed his gaze. She saw Grace watching through the windshield. Her face went pale. Grace is alive? Disappointed, Nathan asked coldly. Vivian's mask slipped for just a second. In that second, Grace saw everything, the calculation, the hatred, the complete lack of remorse. Then the mask was back. Vivian straightened her coat. I am calling our lawyers. You will regret this. Ma'am, you are also under arrest for obstruction of justice. Please turn around. Excuse me? I have done nothing wrong. You are an accessory to the attempted murder of a pregnant woman. You were in the car when your boyfriend abandoned his wife. You did nothing to stop it. You did nothing to help her. That is not illegal. It is when you are part of the conspiracy. Nathan pulled out a second pair of the handcuffs. Turn around. Another patrol car appeared through the snow. Deputy Marcus Webb stepped out. He was young, eager, and had been Nathan's partner for 2 years. Unit 7, I have got your backup. What do we have here? 2 for transport, Nathan said. Mr. Caldwell goes in my car. I want to keep an eye on him. Ms. Drake goes with you. Copy that. Marcus walked toward Vivian. Ma'am, please come with me. Vivian started screaming about lawsuits, about harassment, about how they would all lose their jobs. Marcus cuffed her anyway. Her designer heels slipped on the ice as he led her to his car. Nathan opened the back door of his patrol car and guided Harrison inside. The CEO of Caldwell Industries sat in the cage meant for criminals. His expensive suit was wet with snow. His perfect hair was ruined. His whole world was crumbling. Grace watched from the front seat. She felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, just a vast emptiness where her marriage used to be. Nathan got in the driver's seat. He glanced at Grace. Hospital first, then the station. I want you checked out before anything else. Grace nodded. She did not trust her voice. From the back seat, Harrison spoke. His voice was different now, pleading. Grace, honey, you have to tell him this is all a mistake. I never meant for any of this to happen. I love you. I love our baby. Grace did not turn around. She kept her eyes on the road ahead. You left me to die, she said quietly. You left our baby to die. I was angry. I was not thinking straight. People make mistakes when they are angry. You said that was the point. When I told you we could die, you said that was the point. I did not mean it. I swear I did not mean it. Yes, you did. We'll see. I'm ready. The patrol car fell silent. Nathan drove through the storm. The wipers beat steadily. The heater hummed. And Grace let herself feel the truth she had been avoiding for 3 years. Her husband had never loved her. He had used her. And when she became inconvenient, he had tried to kill her. County General Hospital appeared through the snow. Nathan pulled up to the emergency entrance and helped Grace inside. Nurses rushed toward them. Someone brought a wheelchair. Someone else paged the on-call obstetrician. Dr. Susan Hargrove arrived within minutes. She was 55 years old with gray hair and kind eyes. She had delivered hundreds of babies in this county. She had seen everything, but even she looked shaken when she heard what had happened. 8 months pregnant, she said, shaking her head. Abandoned in a blizzard. I have been a doctor for 30 years. I thought nothing could surprise me anymore. She ran every test, checked every vital sign, hooked Grace up to monitors that tracked the baby's heartbeat. The baby is fine, Dr. Hargrove said finally. Strong heartbeat, good movement. You got lucky, Grace. Another 15 minutes out there, and we might be having a very different conversation. Grace placed her hand on her belly. The baby kicked against her palm. Thank you, Grace whispered. Not to the doctor, to whatever force had sent her brother down that road at exactly the right moment. The hospital room was quiet after Dr. Hargrove left. Grace lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The monitors beeped softly. Snow still fell outside the window. She thought about the life she had built with Harrison. The fancy house, the designer clothes, the society parties, all of it had been a lie. A beautiful, expensive lie. She thought about the signs she had ignored, the late nights at the office, the secretive phone calls, the way Harrison looked at Vivian when he thought nobody was watching. The evidence had been right in front of her. She had chosen not to see it, Because seeing it would mean admitting she had made a terrible mistake. Because seeing it would mean her fairy tale was over. Because seeing it would mean starting over. And starting over was terrifying. So she had closed her eyes, and she had almost died because of it. Her phone buzzed. Grace looked at the screen. A text message from an unknown number. She opened it. The first thing she saw was a photograph. Harrison and Vivian, in bed together. The image was explicit, undeniable. There were more photographs. Harrison and Vivian in what looked like a hotel room. Harrison and Vivian in an office. Harrison and Vivian in the living room of Grace's own house. Then came the text. You should know the truth. He has been planning to divorce you since before the wedding. He only married you for the inheritance. I have proof. Meet me if you want to survive what is coming. Grace stared at the message for a long time. Her hand trembled. Her heart raced. The door opened. Nathan walked in with 2 cups of coffee. Hospital coffee, he said apologetically. Terrible, but warm. Grace showed him the phone. Nathan read the message. His face darkened. Who sent this? I do not know. The number is blocked. We need to trace it. Nathan. Grace's voice was barely a whisper. What if it is true? What if he never loved me? What if the whole marriage was a scam? Nathan sat down beside her bed. He took her hand. Then we will deal with it. Together. You are not alone, Grace. You never were. Grace looked at her brother, the boy who had pulled her pigtails when they were children. The teenager who had threatened every boy who looked at her wrong. The man who had just saved her life. I was so stupid, she said. The signs were everywhere. I just did not want to see them. You were not stupid. You were in love. There is a difference. I believed him. Every lie he told, every excuse, I believed all of it. That is not a flaw, Grace. That is trust. He is the one who abused that trust. He is the one who failed, not you. Grace felt tears streaming down her face. She had not cried since Nathan found her. The shock had kept everything locked inside. Now it all came flooding out. Nathan held her while she sobbed. He did not say anything. He did not need to. Some pain could not be fixed with words. It could only be witnessed. When the tears finally stopped, Grace felt different, lighter somehow, like something poisonous had been released. What happens now? She asked. Now you rest. Tomorrow we figure out who sent those messages. We build a case. We make sure Harrison never hurts you again. And if he has powerful lawyers, if he has connections? Nathan smiled grimly. Then he is about to learn that connections do not mean much when you try to kill a state trooper's sister. The news spread faster than the blizzard. By morning, every local station was running the story. CEO arrested for abandoning pregnant wife in deadly storm. The headline was everywhere. Social media exploded with outrage. Grace watched the coverage from her hospital bed. She saw footage of Harrison being led into the police station. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His hair was a mess. He looked nothing like the powerful man she had married. Caldwell Industries stock dropped 12% before the markets even opened. The board of directors called an emergency meeting. Harrison's lawyers descended on the town like vultures. But none of that mattered to Grace. What mattered was the message on her phone. The one from the unknown sender. The one that promised proof. Nathan had traced the number overnight. It belonged to a burner phone purchased with cash. No way to identify the buyer. Whoever sent this knows what they are doing, Nathan said. They do not want to be found. But they want to help me, Grace replied. Wait, that is what we need to figure out. The answer came 3 hours later. Grace's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Hello? Mrs. Caldwell? A woman's voice. Older, cultured, familiar somehow. Who is this? Someone who wants to see my son face consequences for once in his life. Grace's blood ran cold. She knew that voice. She had heard it at family dinners, at holiday gatherings, at her own wedding. Eleanor? A pause. I wondered if you would recognize me. Eleanor Caldwell, Harrison's mother, 68 years old, widowed, one of the wealthiest women in the state, and apparently the person who had sent those messages. Why shall I get that? Grace asked. He is your son. Yes, he is my son. That is exactly why. Eleanor's voice was heavy with something Grace could not identify. Regret, maybe, or shame. I raised him. I watched him become what he is, and I did nothing to stop it. That ends now. I do not understand. Do not. Come to my house, Grace. There are things you need to know. Things that will help you survive what Harrison has planned. Things that will help you protect your child. How do I know this is not a trap? You do not. But ask yourself this. If I wanted to hurt you, why would I warn you? Why would I send those photographs? Grace had no answer for that. 3 o'clock, Eleanor said. Come alone, or do not come at all. Your choice, Mom. The line went dead. Grace sat in the hospital bed, phone still pressed to her ear. Her mind raced through possibilities. This could be exactly what it seemed. A mother turning against her own son. Or it could be a setup, one last chance for Harrison to finish what he started. Nathan walked in with fresh coffee. He saw her face immediately. What happened? Grace told him everything. About the call, about Eleanor, about the invitation. No, Nathan said flatly. Absolutely not. You are not going anywhere near that family. Nathan, she might have evidence, real evidence. She might also be setting you up. Why would she do that? Harrison is already in jail. Out on bail, Nathan corrected. His lawyers got him released 2 hours ago. $100,000. Pocket change for someone like him. Grace felt the blood drain from her face. He is out? There is a restraining order. He cannot come within 500 feet of you. But yes, he is out. The fear returned. That cold, crawling feeling in her stomach. Harrison was free. Harrison was angry. And Harrison had tried to kill her once already. I have to go, Grace said suddenly, to Eleanor's. If she has proof of what Harrison planned, I need it. It might be the only way to put him away for good. Grace, this is too risky. Everything is risky now. Hiding is risky. Running is risky. At least this way I am fighting back. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. His jaw worked. His eyes were troubled. Fine, he said finally. But I am going with you. She said to come alone. Then I will wait in the car, close enough to help if something goes wrong. He met her eyes. This is not negotiable, Grace. You are my sister. I will not lose you. Grace nodded. She understood. If their positions were reversed, she would do the same. That afternoon, they drove to the Caldwell estate. It sat on a hill overlooking the town, a massive Victorian mansion surrounded by acres of manicured grounds. Grace had lived here for the first year of her marriage, before Harrison bought their own house. She had never liked this place. It was too big, too cold, too full of history she did not understand. Nathan parked at the end of the long driveway. I will be right here. Any sign of trouble, you call me. Understood? Understood. Grace walked up to the front door. Her legs felt weak, her heart pounded, but she kept walking. The door opened before she could knock. Eleanor stood there in a simple black dress. Her silver hair was pulled back severely. Her face showed every one of her 68 years. You came, she said. Good, come in. The inside of the house was exactly as Grace remembered. Dark wood, heavy curtains, portraits of dead Caldwells staring down from every wall. Eleanor led her to the study. A fire crackled in the fireplace. 2 chairs faced each other across a small table. On the table sat a box, an ordinary cardboard box filled with papers and files. Sit, Eleanor said. Grace sat. Eleanor took the chair across from her. I suppose you want to know why, Eleanor began. Why I am helping you. Why I am betraying my own son. The thought had crossed my mind. Eleanor smiled thinly. Harrison was not always like this. When he was young, he was sweet, kind even. But his father saw that as weakness. Charles spent years beating the softness out of him, teaching him that compassion was for losers, that the only thing that mattered was winning. She paused, stared into the fire. I watched it happen. I told myself it was for his own good, that the world was hard and he needed to be harder. I was a coward. I let my husband destroy my son because it was easier than fighting back. I am sorry, Grace said. She was not sure why she said it, perhaps because Eleanor looked so broken. Do not be sorry for me. I made my choices. I live with them. Eleanor turned back to face her. But I will not let Harrison do to your child what Charles did to him. That cycle ends here. She pushed the box across the table. Everything you need is in there. Emails between Harrison and Vivian, financial records showing hidden accounts, documents proving he married you specifically to satisfy the terms of his grandfather's will. Grace felt her stomach drop. His grandfather's will? The old man was traditional. He left his fortune in trust for Harrison, but only if Harrison had a legitimate heir, a child born within marriage. Without that child, the money goes to charity. The pieces fell into place. The rushed courtship, the pressure to get pregnant, the sudden change in Harrison's behavior once she conceived. He never wanted me, Grace said slowly. He never wanted the baby. He just wanted the money. $200 million, Eleanor confirmed, give or take. But if he wanted the baby for the inheritance, why try to kill me? Eleanor's expression darkened. Because there is a complication. The trust specifies that Harrison must have full custody of the child. If you are alive, you have rights. You could fight him, you could expose him, you could take the baby and disappear. So he decided to eliminate me and claim the baby after birth. He would tell everyone you died in a tragic accident. The grieving widower. It would almost be sympathetic. Grace felt sick. The man she had married. The man she had loved. He had been planning her death from the beginning. There is more, Eleanor said quietly. Harrison's plan was not just about the inheritance. It was about power, control. He and Vivian have been embezzling from Caldwell Industries for years, laundering money through fake real estate deals. If any of that comes to light, they both go to prison. You knew about this? I suspected. I started gathering evidence 6 months ago after I overheard them talking. That is what is in the box. Everything I have found. Grace looked at the box. Such a small thing. Such an ordinary container. Yet inside was the ammunition she needed to destroy Harrison completely. Why are you giving this to me? She asked. Why not go to the police yourself? Eleanor's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like a very old, very tired woman. Because I am a coward, Grace. I always have been. I cannot be the one to send my own son to prison, but I can give you the tools to do it. She reached across the table and took Grace's hands. Protect your daughter. That is all I ask. Do not let her grow up the way Harrison did. Do not let that poisonous legacy continue. How did you know it was a girl? I bribed a nurse. Eleanor smiled sadly. Old habits. Grace looked at her mother-in-law. This woman she had never really known. This woman who had been complicit in her son's cruelty. This woman who was now trying, in her own flawed way, to make things right. Thank you, Grace said. It was not forgiveness, it was not absolution, but it was something. Eleanor nodded. Go now, before Harrison's people realize you are here, and Grace, watch your back. My son does not lose gracefully. When he realizes what is happening, he will become very dangerous. Grace took the box and left. Nathan was waiting exactly where he said he would be. He started the car before she even closed the door. Did you get what you needed? He asked. Grace held the box in her lap. Inside were emails, records, proof of everything. I got more than I ever wanted, she said. Caroline Preston's office smelled like expensive leather and old books. The walls were covered with framed newspaper articles, headlines about cases she had won, powerful men she had brought down, fortunes she had redistributed. Carolyn herself was 58 years old with silver hair and sharp eyes. She had been practicing family law for 35 years. She had seen every trick, every lay-in, every manipulation that wealthy divorcing couples could devise. But even she raised her eyebrows when Grace finished explaining. Let me make sure I understand, Carolyn said slowly. Your husband married you to satisfy the terms of a trust. He planned to divorce you after the birth and take full custody. When you became an obstacle, he tried to kill you by abandoning you in a blizzard. His mother is now providing evidence of fraud and embezzlement. Does that about cover it? Grace nodded. That about covers it. Caroline leaned back in her chair. I have handled cases involving murder. I have handled cases involving billion-dollar estates. But I do not think I have ever handled one quite like this. Is there anything you can do? Caroline smiled. It was the smile of a predator who had just spotted prey. Mrs. Mitchell, I can do a great deal. This is not just a divorce case anymore. This is fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. Your husband is facing criminal charges that could put him away for decades. And that is before we even look at the financial crimes. She opened the box Grace had brought, spread the documents across her desk. Her eyes scanned rapidly, taking in details. These emails, she murmured, they establish premeditation. He discussed divorcing you before you were even married. He explicitly states his intention to gain custody through court manipulation. She looked up. This is extraordinary evidence. What do we do with it? First, we file for divorce. Immediately. We cite fraud in the inducement of marriage. Under state law, that gives you grounds for annulment rather than divorce, which means the prenuptial agreement is void. There was a prenup? Of course there was. I am guessing you signed it without reading it carefully? Grace flushed. Harrison said it was just a formality. His lawyers were there. They said it was standard. Let me guess. If you divorced for any reason, you got nothing. If Harrison divorced you, you still got nothing. And if anything happened to you after the child was born, Harrison got full custody. That sounds about right. Carolyn shook her head. Classic. They put these things in front of young women in love, tell them it does not matter, and then use it to steal everything. But with evidence of fraud, none of it holds up. So I could actually win? Win? Carolyn laughed. Grace, you are going to destroy him. We have enough here to prove criminal conspiracy. Once we turn this over to the DA, Harrison will be facing federal charges. We file a civil suit at the same time. We freeze his assets. We take everything. Grace felt something she had not felt in days. Hope. Tiny and fragile, but real. What about the baby? She asked. What about custody? Based on this evidence, I cannot imagine any judge granting Harrison so much as supervised visitation. The man tried to murder the mother of his child. That tends to disqualify you from parenting. Grace placed her hand on her belly. The baby kicked. She had been kicking a lot lately, as if she could sense the turmoil around her. I want to protect her, Grace said quietly. That is all I care about. Not the money, not revenge. Just protecting her. Carolyn's expression softened slightly. That is exactly what we are going to do. Now, I need you to understand something. Harrison will fight back. He has resources. He has connections. He will try to discredit you. He will try to make you look unstable. He might even try to have you declared an unfit mother. How can he do that? Money can do almost anything. He might hire a psychiatrist to write a report saying you are mentally ill. He might pay witnesses to lie about your behavior. He might leak stories to the press. Grace thought about her life over the past 3 years, the isolation, the subtle put-downs, the way Harrison had systematically separated her from her friends. He has been setting this up for a long time, she realized, making me dependent on him, cutting me off from everyone. Classic abuser behavior, but it also means he underestimated you. He expected you to crumble without him. Instead, you are fighting back. That will catch him off guard. Grace straightened in her chair. Something was shifting inside her. The fear was still there, but something else was growing alongside it. Something harder, colder, more determined. I am not the same woman I was a week ago, she said. I am not going to crumble. Caroline nodded approvingly. Good. Hold on to that. You are going to need it. That night, Grace stayed at her mother's house. Patricia Mitchell was 62 years old with gray-streaked hair and hands calloused from decades of work. She had raised Grace and Nathan alone after their father died. She had scrubbed floors and worked double shifts to keep them fed. She was the strongest person Grace had ever known. Patricia made chicken soup. She always made chicken soup in a crisis. Something about the ritual of cooking seemed to calm her. Eat, she said, placing a bowl in front of Grace. The baby needs nutrition. Grace ate. The soup was perfect, warm and salty, and exactly what she needed. I am sorry, Mom, she said between spoonfuls, for not listening, for not seeing who Harrison really was. You do not apologize to me. Patricia's voice was firm. You did nothing wrong. You fell in love. That is not a crime. I ignored all the warnings. Nathan tried to tell me. You tried to tell me. And we were right, but being right does not mean we did not want you to be happy. We wanted it to work, Grace. We wanted you to prove us wrong. Grace felt tears threatening again. She pushed them down. She had cried enough. "What do I do now?" she asked. "I have a baby coming, no home, a husband who wants me dead. How do I start over from nothing?" Patricia reached across the table and took her daughter's hands. "You are not starting from nothing. You have a family who loves you. You have a brother who would die for you. You have a lawyer who seems very capable. And you have strength you do not even know about yet. I do not feel strong. Strong is not a feeling. Strong is a choice. You choose to get up in the morning. You choose to fight for your baby. You choose to keep going even when everything hurts. That is strength." Grace looked at her mother, at the lines on her face, at the gray in her hair, at the fierce love in her eyes. "How did you do it?" Grace asked. "After Dad died? How did you keep going?" Patricia was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "I looked at you and Nathan. You were 7 and 12. You needed me. So I kept going, one day at a time, one step at a time, until one day I realized I was not just surviving anymore. I was living. Was it worth it?" "Every minute." Patricia squeezed her hands. "And your baby will be worth it too. You will see. When she is born, when you hold her for the first time, none of this will matter. Not Harrison, not the money, not any of it. All that will matter is her." Grace wanted to believe that. She wanted it so badly. But the fear was still there, coiled in her chest like a snake. At 3 in the morning, Grace woke up. She could not sleep. Her mind would not stop racing. She walked to the kitchen and opened her laptop. The blue light of the screen illuminated her face as she typed. "Can a single mother beat a billionaire in divorce court?" The results were not encouraging. Story after story of women who had tried and failed, women who had lost everything, women whose children had been taken away. Grace kept searching. Different terms, different angles. Women who won divorce cases against wealthy husbands. Some results now, stories of victory, of justice, of women who had beaten the odds. She read until her eyes burned, until the sun started coming up, until she found what she was looking for. Hope, real, documented hope. Women who had been in her position and had won. Women who had protected their children. Women who had rebuilt their lives. If they could do it, so could she. Patricia found her still at the table, still reading. She said nothing, just started making coffee, just being there. "I am going to fight," Grace said quietly. "I know. He might win anyway. He might take everything. He might. But I have to try, for her." Grace touched her belly. "I have to show her that you do not give up just because the odds are bad." Patricia poured 2 cups of coffee, sat down across from her daughter. "Then we fight," she said simply, "together." Harrison's counterattack came faster than anyone expected. 3 days after Grace filed for divorce, a process server appeared at Patricia's door. He handed Grace a thick envelope and disappeared before she could say a word. Inside was a custody petition. Harrison was suing for full custody of the unborn child. He claimed Grace was mentally unstable. He claimed she had tried to harm the baby. He claimed she was a danger to herself and others. Attached was a psychiatric evaluation. Signed by a doctor Grace had never met. Dated 2 days ago. A complete fabrication. "How is this legal?" Grace asked Caroline on the phone. "He cannot just make up a psychiatric report. He can if he finds a doctor willing to lie. And with enough money, you can always find someone willing to lie. But I never saw this doctor. There is no way his report can be accurate. That is what we will prove. But first, we need to deal with the immediate threat. Harrison has asked for an emergency hearing. If the judge believes his petition, you could lose custody before the baby is even born." Grace felt the floor dropping out from under her. This was Harrison's power. Not just money, not just connections, the ability to twist reality itself, to make lies sound like truth. "When is the hearing?" "Tomorrow." Grace spent the night preparing. Carolyn walked her through every question she might face, every attack Harrison's lawyers might make, every way they might try to trip her up. "They will try to make you angry," Carolyn warned. "They want you to look unstable. Stay calm no matter what." "What if I cannot?" "Then think about your daughter. Every time you feel yourself losing control, think about her. You think about what she needs from you. The next morning, Grace walked into the courthouse. Her belly was huge now, 8.5 months. She felt like a whale in a navy blue maternity dress. Harrison was already there. He looked perfect in his tailored suit. His hair was styled. His expression was sorrowful. The grieving husband worried about his child. Grace wanted to scream. She wanted to tell everyone what a monster he was. But she remembered Caroline's words. Stay calm. Think about the baby. Judge William Hartley presided. He was 63 years old with a reputation for fairness. Grace hoped that reputation was deserved. Harrison's lawyer spoke first. He painted a picture of a devoted husband and father, a man who only wanted what was best for his child, a man whose wife had become erratic and dangerous. We have documentation of Mrs. Caldwell's mental instability, the lawyer said. A full psychiatric evaluation by Dr. Bernard Shaw, a respected professional in this community. Objection, Caroline said immediately. This psychiatric evaluation was conducted without my client's knowledge or consent. She has never met Dr. Shaw. She has never been examined by him. Judge Hartley frowned. Is this true? Harrison's lawyer smiled smoothly. Dr. Shaw's evaluation was based on extensive interviews with people who know Mrs. Caldwell, her behavior over the past 3 years, her increasingly erratic actions. What erratic actions? Carolyn demanded. Withdrawing from social activities, becoming isolated, expressing paranoid beliefs that her husband was having an affair. These are classic signs of mental deterioration. Grace felt her face flush. This was Harrison's trap. Every symptom of the abuse he had subjected her to was being twisted into evidence of her own instability. Caroline was ready. Your Honor, I would like to present evidence that directly contradicts the petitioner's claims. She placed a stack of papers on the judge's desk. Phone records, text messages, emails, all the evidence Eleanor had provided. These documents show that Mr. Caldwell did in fact have an affair. His wife's suspicions were not paranoid delusions. They were accurate assessments of her husband's infidelity. The isolation and withdrawal were not signs of mental illness. They were responses to systematic emotional abuse. Harrison's lawyer objected. The judge overruled him. Furthermore, Caroline continued, I have evidence that Mr. Caldwell married my client under false pretenses. His sole motivation was to satisfy the terms of a trust that required him to have a legitimate heir. He planned from the beginning to divorce her after the birth of the child and claim full custody. She placed more documents on the desk. Harrison's own emails, his own words, damning him. Finally, Caroline said, I have evidence that Mr. Caldwell deliberately abandoned his pregnant wife in a life-threatening situation. He left her in a blizzard with the stated intention that she would die. This was attempted murder. The fact that she survived does not diminish the severity of his actions. The courtroom was silent. Judge Hartley read through the documents. His expression grew darker with each page. Harrison sat frozen. His smooth mask was cracking. Beneath it, Grace could see something she had never seen before in her husband's eyes. Fear. Mr. Caldwell, Judge Hartley said finally, do you have anything to say in response to these allegations? Harrison's lawyer whispered in his ear. Harrison shook his head. No, Your Honor, these documents are fabricated. My wife and her lawyer are conspiring against me. These emails came from your own server, Mr. Caldwell. Are you suggesting someone hacked into your private accounts and planted evidence? I am suggesting my mother has been manipulated. She is elderly, confused. My wife took advantage of her. Your mother is 68 years old and sits on 3 corporate boards. She hardly seems confused. Judge Hartley set down the papers. I am denying the emergency custody petition. Furthermore, I am referring these documents to the district attorney's office for investigation into potential criminal charges. Harrison stood up. This is outrageous. I am being railroaded. Sit down, Mr. Caldwell. I will not sit down. My wife is trying to steal my child and my money. Everyone in this town knows what kind of woman she is. Mr. Caldwell, I said sit down. No, you do not understand. She is the one who is dangerous. She is the one who is unstable. I had to leave her in that storm because she threatened me. She said she would kill me if I did not let her out of the car. The lie was so bold, so desperate that Grace almost laughed. But she did not laugh. She sat quietly, calmly, exactly as Carolyn had instructed. Nathan sat behind her in the gallery. He had insisted on being there. His jaw was tight, his hands were clenched, but he stayed silent. Judge Hartley had heard enough. Mr. Caldwell, your behavior in this courtroom has confirmed everything in these documents. You are a manipulator and a liar. I am extending the restraining order. You are to stay at least 1,000 feet from your wife at all times. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. You cannot do this. I just did. This hearing is adjourned. Harrison's lawyers tried to calm him down. He shook them off. He pointed at Grace. This is not over, he said. Do you hear me, Grace? This is not over. Two bailiffs moved toward him. Harrison's lawyers pulled him away. The door slammed behind them. Grace sat in her chair. Her hands were shaking, but she had not broken. She had not crumbled. Carolyn patted her arm. Well done, you were perfect. I was terrified. That is the trick. Be terrified, just do not let them see it. Nathan helped Grace to her feet. His eyes were bright with something that might have been pride. You stood up to him, he said. You finally stood up to him. I had to, for her. Grace touched her belly. For Hope. Hope? That is her name. Hope, because she is what I have left to hope for. Nathan smiled. It was the first real smile Grace had seen from him in days. Hope Mitchell, he said. I like it. The war had officially begun. Harrison hired a team of 5 lawyers from New York. The best money could buy. They filed motion after motion, appeal after appeal. They flooded the court with paperwork designed to overwhelm and exhaust. Grace's days became an endless cycle of meetings and depositions. Caroline guided her through each one. Stay calm, answer only what is asked. Do not volunteer information. The media picked up the story. A reporter from the local news did a piece on the abandoned wife of the billionaire COO. The story went viral. Suddenly Grace was famous, or infamous, depending on who you asked. Harrison's PR team went into overdrive. They leaked stories about Grace's mental health. They found former coworkers who said she was difficult. They dug up old boyfriends who claimed she was unstable. It was character assassination on a massive scale. And Grace had to watch it happen, powerless to stop it. Some friends abandoned her. People she had known for years suddenly stopped returning her calls. They believed Harrison's version, or they were afraid to be associated with her. But not Megan. Megan Thornton had been Grace's roommate in college. They had been bridesmaids at each other's weddings. They had survived finals week and bad boyfriends and too much cheap wine. Megan showed up at Patricia's house 3 days after the hearing. She had a bag of Chinese takeout and a bottle of sparkling cider. I know you cannot drink, she said, but I figured we could still pretend. They sat on the back porch, eating lo mein and watching the sunset. Grace felt almost normal for the first time in weeks. I am sorry I have not been around more, Megan said. Work has been insane. Do not apologize. Everyone has their own life. Still, you needed me and I was not here. Grace shook her head. You are here now. That is what matters. Megan was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. I never liked him, you know, Harrison. I never said anything because you seemed happy, but there was always something wrong about him, like he was performing all the time. Why did you not tell me? Would you have listened? Grace thought about it. Probably not. That is what I figured. You were in love, and sometimes people have to learn the hard way. Megan looked at her. But you did learn. That is what matters. Some people never figure it out. Grace touched her belly. Hope kicked against her palm. I was being gaslit the whole time, she said quietly. That is the word, right? Gaslighting? That is the word. He made me think I was crazy. Every time I suspected something, he turned it around on me, made me feel paranoid, made me feel like the problem was me. Classic abuser behavior. I know that now. I just wish I had known it 3 years ago. Megan put her arm around Grace. You know it now. That is what counts. And that little girl inside you is going to grow up with a mother who understands these things, who can protect her, who can teach her. Grace leaned into her friend's embrace. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. Then her phone rang. Unknown number, Grace answered. Mrs. Caldwell? A woman's voice, nervous. My name is Rachel Simmons. I used to work for your husband. How did you get this number? I have my ways. Listen, I do not have much time. Harrison's people might be monitoring this call. Grace sat up straighter. What do you want? I want to help you. I was the head accountant at Caldwell Industries. I know things that could destroy Harrison. What kind of things? He has been laundering money for years, funneling it through fake real estate deals, hiding it in offshore accounts. I have records. I made copies before he fired me. Grace's heart was pounding. Why are you telling me this? Because he destroyed my life. Because he fired me when I asked questions. Because he threatened my family. Rachel's voice cracked. And because what he did to you is not the first time. There were other women before you. Women who mysteriously disappeared when they became inconvenient. Grace felt ice in her veins. What do you mean, disappeared? I mean exactly what you think I mean. Harrison has done this before. You are just the first one who survived. The line went silent for a moment. When Rachel spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. Meet me tomorrow. Noon. The coffee shop on 5th Street. I will bring everything I have. But be careful, Mrs. Caldwell. Harrison has eyes everywhere, and he does not let people get in his way. The line went dead. Grace stared at her phone. Megan was watching her with wide eyes. What was that about? Grace told her. Megan's face went pale. Grace, this is serious. If Harrison has killed people before, you might be in danger. I know. You need to tell Nathan. You need protection. I know. So why do you look like you are about to do something stupid? Grace looked at her friend, at the sunset, at the phone in her hand. Because I have been running from Harrison for 3 years, she said. I am done running. If there is evidence that can put him away forever, I'm going to find it. Even if it is dangerous. Especially if it is dangerous. Because the most dangerous thing I can do is let him keep control. Let him keep terrorizing people. Let him keep getting away with it. Megan was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled grimly. Fine, but I am coming with you. Megan, you do not have to. Yes, I do. That is what friends are for. She picked up her cider and raised it in a mock toast. To taking down billionaire sociopaths. Grace raised her own glass. To taking down billionaire sociopaths. They clinked glasses. The sunset faded to purple, and Grace felt something she had not felt in a long time. Not hope, not yet, but the first faint stirring of something that might become hope, given time. The coffee shop was small and crowded, perfect for a secret meeting. Grace sat in the back corner, facing the door. Megan sat beside her. Nathan waited in his car outside, ready to intervene if needed. Rachel Simmons arrived exactly at noon. She was a thin woman in her 50s with nervous eyes and trembling hands. She carried a laptop bag that she clutched like a lifeline. Mrs. Caldwell, she said, sliding into the booth. Thank you for meeting me. Call me Grace, and thank you for reaching out. Rachel glanced around the coffee shop, checking for familiar faces, for threats. I need you to understand something, she said quietly. What I am about to show you could get us both killed. Harrison has people everywhere. Police officers on his payroll, judges he has compromised, even federal agents. I understand the risk. Do you? Because I have spent the last 2 years looking over my shoulder, jumping at every sound, convinced that every stranger is someone coming to silence me. Grace looked at this woman, at the fear etched into her face, at the courage it must have taken to make this call. Why now? Grace asked. Why are you coming forward after 2 years? Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Because I saw what he did to you. I saw the news coverage. A pregnant woman left to die in a blizzard. And I realized if I stay silent, it will keep happening. More women will suffer. More women will die. She opened her laptop bag, pulled out a thick manila envelope. This is everything: bank records, wire transfers, shell companies, a complete map of Harrison's financial crimes. Grace took the envelope. It was heavy in her hands. There is something else, Rachel said. Something I have never told anyone. What? Rachel's voice dropped even lower. 3 years ago, before you met Harrison, there was another woman. Her name was Catherine Wells. She was his girlfriend for 2 years. They were engaged. What happened to her? Officially, a car accident. Her brakes failed on a mountain road. She went over a cliff. And unofficially, Rachel met her eyes. A week before she died, she told me she was leaving Harrison. She had found evidence of his affairs. She was going to expose him. Rachel paused. Her car was serviced the day before the accident by a mechanic who works exclusively for the Caldwell family. Grace felt sick. The coffee in her cup suddenly looked like poison. You think Harrison killed her? I know he did. I just cannot prove it. Rachel pushed another piece of paper across the table. This is Catherine's sister's contact information. She never believed the accident story. She has been investigating on her own for years. Grace took the paper. Her hands were shaking now. Why did you not go to the police? I did. The detective I spoke to turned up dead a week later. Heart attack, they said. 42 years old, ran marathons, no history of heart problems. Heart attack. So anyone who tries to expose Harrison ends up dead. Anyone who does it alone. Rachel looked at her. But you are not alone. You have your lawyer. You have your brother. You have public attention now. Harrison cannot make you disappear quietly. Too many people are watching. Grace thought about this. The cameras outside the courthouse. The reporters calling her phone, the viral stories spreading across social media. For the first time, she realized that the attention she hated might be protecting her. What do you want from me? She asked Rachel. I want immunity. When this goes to trial, when Harrison faces federal charges, I want protection from prosecution for anything I might have done while working for him. You were just following orders. I still look the other way. I still cash the paychecks. I am not innocent in this. Rachel's voice cracked. But I am trying to make it right. Grace looked at this woman, at the burden she had been carrying for years, at the courage it took to finally share it. I will talk to my lawyer, Grace said. I cannot make promises, but I will try. Rachel nodded. She slid a USB drive across the table. Everything is on there. Copies of everything. Keep it safe. She stood up to leave. Then she turned back. One more thing, Grace. Be careful who you trust. Harrison has people inside the police department, inside the courthouse, inside everywhere you might think it is safe. How do I know who to trust? Rachel smiled sadly. You do not. You just have to hope you guess right. She walked out of the coffee shop. Grace watched her go. The USB drive felt like a bomb in her pocket. That night, Grace sat in her childhood bedroom. The laptop was open. The files from Rachel's USB drive filled the screen. It was worse than she had imagined. Not just money laundering. Harrison had been bribing government officials for years. He had falsified environmental reports to get building permits. He had destroyed wetlands and forests and blamed it on his competitors. And then there were the other women, names she had never heard, women who had dated Harrison before her, women who had disappeared or died in convenient accidents. Catherine Wells was just the beginning. Grace read until 3 in the morning, until her eyes burned, until the baby kicked so hard she had to stop and catch her breath. She walked to the bathroom, filled a glass of water, looked at herself in the mirror. Her face was pale, dark circles under her eyes, hair limp and tangled. She looked like a woman at the end of her rope, but she did not feel like one. Not anymore. She felt like a woman who had finally found her footing, who had finally found her fight. I am going to destroy him, she whispered to her reflection. For Catherine, for Rachel, for all of them. The baby kicked in response. Grace smiled for the first time in days. For you too, Hope. Most of all, for you. She walked back to the bedroom, sat down at the laptop, and kept reading. By morning, she had a plan. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the gallery. Cameras waited outside. The story of the abandoned pregnant wife had captured the nation's attention. Grace sat at the plaintiff's table, her belly huge beneath her maternity dress. 8.5 months now. Any day now, the doctor had said. But first, this. Harrison sat across the aisle with his 5 lawyers. He looked thin, haggard. The weeks since his arrest had not been kind to him. His stock price had cratered. His board had voted him out. His empire was crumbling. But he still wore that smile, that confident, charming smile that had fooled Grace for 3 years. Judge Hartley entered. Everyone rose. The proceedings began. Caroline was magnificent. She presented evidence methodically: emails, financial records, witness testimony. Each piece built on the last until the picture was undeniable. Harrison Caldwell was not just a cheater, he was a criminal, a fraud, possibly a murderer. The psychiatric report Harrison had fabricated was demolished by a real psychiatrist who had actually examined Grace. She was not mentally ill. She was a victim of sustained psychological abuse. Rachel Simmons took the stand. She testified about the money laundering, the bribes, the shell companies. Harrison's lawyers tried to discredit her, but she held firm. She had receipts, literally. And then came the bombshell. Carolyn called her final witness, a woman Grace had never met, a woman named Michelle Wells, Catherine Wells' sister. Michelle was 45 years old with gray streaks in her dark hair. She looked like she had not slept well in years. She looked like a woman haunted by ghosts. "Ms. Wells," Caroline said gently, "can you tell the court about your sister, Catherine?" Michelle's voice was steady. "Catherine was my younger sister. She was 32 years old when she died. She was beautiful and kind and smart, and she was engaged to Harrison Caldwell." "Now, what happened to her?" "She died in a car accident. Her brakes failed. She drove off a cliff." "Do you believe it was an accident?" Harrison's lawyer objected. Judge Hartley overruled. "No," Michelle said. "I do not believe it was an accident. I believe Harrison Caldwell murdered my sister." The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled for their phones. Harrison's lawyers shouted objections. Judge Hartley banged his gavel. "Order! Order in the court!" When things calmed down, Caroline continued, "Why do you believe your sister was murdered?" "Because she was about to leave Harrison. She had found evidence of his affairs. She told me she was going to expose him. A week later, she was dead." "Did you report your suspicions to the police?" "I tried. The detective I spoke to died shortly after. Heart attack, they said." Michelle's voice cracked. "I have spent 3 years gathering evidence, interviewing mechanics, tracking down witnesses. I know what Harrison did. I just could not prove it." And now, Michelle looked directly at Harrison. Her eyes burned with years of grief and rage. "Now I can, because Grace Mitchell survived, because Rachel Simmons came forward, because the truth is finally coming out." Grace watched Harrison's face as Michelle testified. She saw his mask crack, saw the monster beneath. He knew it was over. She could see it in his eyes. When the testimony ended, Judge Hartley called a recess. Grace stood up carefully. Her back ached, her feet were swollen, but she felt lighter than she had in years. Nathan was at her side immediately. "How do you feel?" "Like I can finally breathe." They walked out of the courtroom. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Grace said nothing. She just walked. In the hallway, she saw Eleanor Caldwell standing alone. The older woman looked small somehow, diminished. Grace walked over to her. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for the evidence, for everything." Eleanor shook her head. "Do not thank me. I should have done it years ago. I should have stopped him when he was young." Tears streamed down her wrinkled cheeks. "He is my son. I loved him, but I cannot protect him anymore. Not from this. I am sorry. Do not be sorry for me. I do not deserve it." Eleanor reached out and touched Grace's belly. "But she does. She deserves a chance, a real chance at a life free from all this poison." Grace placed her hand over Eleanor's. "Two women, once enemies, now something more complicated than friends. I will protect her," Grace promised, "no matter what." "I know you will." Eleanor pulled back, straightened her shoulders. "Now go. Have your baby, start your new life, and never look back." Grace nodded. She turned and walked away. Behind her, she heard Eleanor say one more thing. "Tell her about me someday. Not the bad parts. Just tell her that her grandmother loved her, even if she could not love her own son properly." What? Grace did not turn around. She did not need to. She just kept walking into the sunlight, into her future, into whatever came next. The contractions started at 6 in the morning. Grace was alone in her childhood bedroom at her mother's house. Patricia had left for work an hour earlier. Nathan was finishing the night shift. The pain woke her from a deep sleep like a knife twisting in her lower back. At first, she thought it was just Braxton Hicks, false labor. Dr. Hargrove had warned her about it during the last appointment. Sometimes the body practiced before the real event, but then the pain came again. Stronger this time, more insistent. Grace sat up slowly. Her belly was enormous now. 8 months and 3 weeks. The baby was not due for another week and a half. Another contraction hit. Grace gasped. This was not practice. This was real. She reached for her phone on the nightstand. Her hands were shaking. She knocked over a glass of water. It shattered on the floor. She barely noticed. Then her water broke. The warm fluid soaked through her pajamas, soaked the sheets beneath her. There was no denying it now. Hope was coming, ready or not. Grace called Nathan first. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Voicemail. "Nathan," she gasped into the phone. "It is happening. The baby is coming. I am at Mom's house. Please hurry." She hung up, called her mother. Patricia answered on the second ring. "Grace, what is wrong?" "The baby. She is coming. My water broke. I am on my way. Do not move. Just breathe. Remember the classes. In through your nose, out through your mouth." "Mom, I am scared." "I know, sweetheart, but you can do this. You are the strongest person I know." "I do not feel strong." "You never do. That is the secret. Strong people never feel strong. They just keep going anyway." Another contraction ripped through her. Grace cried out. "I am 15 minutes away," Patricia said. "Just hold on. Breathe through it. I am coming." Grace tried to breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, the way they taught in the birthing classes, the classes Harrison had refused to attend. She thought about him briefly, wondered if he knew, wondered if he cared. Then she pushed him out of her mind. He did not deserve space in her thoughts, not today, not ever again. The contractions were getting closer together, 5 minutes apart, then 4. The baby was in a hurry. Grace managed to change out of her wet pajamas. She moved slowly, carefully, stopping every time a contraction hit. She pulled on a loose dress, found her hospital bag by the door. Patricia had helped her pack it weeks ago. Clothes for her, clothes for the baby, toiletries, a book she knew she would never read, a photo of her father dead for 20 years but still present in spirit. Nathan called back. His voice was panicked. "I just got your message. I am on the other side of the county. There was an accident on Road 7. I am coming as fast as I can." "How long?" 20 minutes, maybe more. Another contraction. Grace doubled over. The phone slipped from her hand. "Grace? Grace, are you there?" She picked up the phone. "I am here. Can you hold on?" "I do not have a choice." "You can do this. Remember what Mom always said. Mitchell women are fighters." "I do not feel like a fighter right now. I feel like I am dying." "You are not dying. You are giving birth. There is a difference." Despite everything, Grace almost laughed. "Almost. Just hurry," she said. "I am breaking every speed limit. I will be there soon." The next 20 minutes were the longest of Grace's life. She sat on the edge of her bed, breathing through each contraction, counting the seconds between them, watching the clock on her nightstand tick away. 4 minutes apart, 3.5, 3. She thought about hope, about the life waiting for this little girl. A life without Harrison, without Laiswa, without fear. She thought about all the women who had done this before her, millions of them, billions, throughout all of human history, women who had brought new life into the world through pain and blood and determination. If they could do it, so could she. The front door burst open. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. Nathan appeared in the doorway, still in uniform, still wearing his badge. His face was pale with worry. "I am here," he said. "Let us go." He helped her down the stairs. Each step was agony. Each step brought her closer to the car, closer to the hospital, closer to meeting her daughter. Nathan's patrol car was parked in the driveway. The lights were still flashing. He had not even turned off the engine. He helped her into the passenger seat, buckled her seatbelt carefully around her enormous belly. Then he ran around to the driver's side and floored the accelerator. The sirens wailed. The lights flashed. Cars pulled over to let them pass. Grace watched the town blur by through the window, the coffee shop where she had met Rachel, the courthouse where she had fought for her life, the church where she had married Harrison, foolishly believing in happily ever after. None of that mattered now. Only the baby mattered. Only hope. Patricia met them at the hospital entrance. She had a wheelchair ready. She must have broken every speed limit, too. "How far apart?" she asked as they wheeled Grace through the automatic doors. "2 minutes," Grace gasped. "Maybe less." Nurses surrounded them. Someone paged Dr. Hargrove. Someone else attached monitors to Grace's belly. The baby's heartbeat filled the room, strong and steady and perfect. "She is doing great," a nurse said. "Baby's heart rate is excellent." Grace felt tears streaming down her face. Relief, terror, everything mixed together. Dr. Hargrove arrived, still pulling on her scrubs. "Grace, I hear someone is in a hurry to meet the world." She was not supposed to come yet. "Babies have their own schedules, always have, always will." Dr. Hargrove examined her quickly. "You are at 8 centimeters. This is happening fast. Are you ready?" "No, I'm good. Nobody ever is." The next 2 hours were a blur of pain and pressure and voices telling her to push. Patricia held one hand. Nathan held the other. Dr. Hargrove guided her through each contraction. "You are doing amazing," Patricia kept saying. "You are almost there." "I cannot do this," Grace cried. "It hurts too much." "Yes, you can. You have survived worse than this. You survived Harrison. You survived the blizzard. You can survive anything." Grace thought about that night, the cold, the fear, the certainty that she was going to die. She had survived that. She had kept going. One step at a time, one breath at a time. She could do this too. One more push, one more surge of pain. And then suddenly, relief. A cry filled the room. High and strong and perfect. "It is a girl," Dr. Hargrove announced, as if there had been any doubt. "A beautiful, healthy girl." They placed the baby on Grace's chest, warm and wet and wriggling. So small, so perfect, so absolutely overwhelmingly real. Grace looked down at her daughter, at those tiny fingers, those tiny toes, those eyes that were trying so hard to focus on her face. "Hello, Hope," she whispered. "I have been waiting for you for such a long time." The baby stopped crying, just looked at her mother, as if she understood, as if she had been waiting too. Patricia was sobbing, actual sobbing. Grace had never seen her mother cry like this. "She is beautiful," Patricia said through her tears. "She looks just like you did. Just like you." Nathan was trying not to cry, failing miserably. "Hey there, little one," he said softly. "I am your Uncle Nathan. I am going to teach you how to throw a football, and how to spot liars, and how to defend yourself against anyone who tries to hurt you." "She is 3 minutes old," Grace said. "Maybe give her a day before the self-defense lessons." "Never too early to start." Dr. Hargrove and the nurses bustled around them, cleaning, measuring, recording. But Grace barely noticed. Her whole world had narrowed to this tiny person in her arms. 6 pounds, 8 ounces, 19 inches long, 10 fingers, 10 toes, one perfect, beautiful soul. Hope Mitchell had arrived. The next few days passed in a haze of feedings and diaper changes and visitors. Megan came with flowers and a teddy bear the size of a small child. Carolyn came with legal documents that could wait, and a gift basket that could not. Even Eleanor Caldwell sent something, a handwritten note in an antique silver rattle that had been in the Caldwell family for generations. "She should have something from her father's side," the note read. "Even if her father does not deserve to be remembered." Grace put the rattle in a drawer. Maybe someday she would give it to Hope, maybe not. Some decisions did not need to be made today. On the third day, they brought Hope home. Not to the mansion Grace had shared with Harrison. That had been sold months ago. Home was Patricia's house now, the house where Grace had grown up, the house where she had learned to walk and talk and dream about the future. The nursery was ready. Patricia and Nathan had set it up while Grace was in the hospital. A white crib, a rocking chair, curtains with little yellow ducks, a mobile that played Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Grace stood in the doorway, holding her sleeping daughter, taking it all in. "You did not have to do all this," she said. Yes, we did, Patricia replied. This is what family does. Family. Grace thought about that word, about what it meant, about what it should mean. Harrison had taught her that family could be a weapon, a tool for manipulation, a source of pain. Patricia and Nathan had taught her something different. Family was shelter. Family was safety. Family was people who showed up, no matter what. Hope stirred in her arms, made a little sound that was half cry, half sigh. Shh, Grace whispered. It is okay. You are home now. You are safe. 2 weeks later, Grace walked back into the courtroom. She had lost the baby weight surprisingly fast. Stress and breastfeeding, Dr. Hargrove said, not the healthiest combination, but effective. She wore a simple navy dress, professional, confident, nothing like the terrified woman who had first faced Harrison across this room. Hope was at home with Patricia. Grace had pumped enough milk for an army. She would not be gone long. This was the final hearing, the moment everything had been building toward. Criminal and civil proceedings had been consolidated for efficiency. Today, Judge Hartley would deliver his verdict on the divorce. Tomorrow, the federal court would begin Harrison's criminal trial. The gallery was packed, every seat filled. Reporters lined the walls with notebooks and recorders. This case had captured national attention. The billionaire who tried to murder his pregnant wife, the state trooper brother who saved her by about her, the mother-in-law who turned whistleblower. It had all the elements of a Hollywood thriller, except it was real, and Grace had lived it. Harrison sat at the defendant's table with his army of lawyers. He looked terrible, thin, pale. The months since his arrest had aged him a decade. His perfectly tailored suit hung loose on his frame. His eyes were hollow. Grace felt nothing when she looked at him. No anger, no fear, no love, just emptiness, where all those emotions used to be. Caroline sat beside her, immaculate as always. Are you ready? I have been ready for months. Good, because this is going to be satisfying. Judge Hartley entered. Everyone rose. The proceedings began. Carolyn presented her closing arguments first. She was methodical, precise, devastating. She walked the judge through every piece of evidence. The emails proving Harrison married Grace specifically to satisfy his grandfather's will. The financial records showing hidden assets and fraudulent transfers. The testimony of Rachel Simmons about money laundering. The testimony of Michelle Wells about her sister's suspicious death. And then, the night of the blizzard itself, the attempted murder, the abandonment, the rescue by Nathan. Your Honor, Caroline concluded, this is not simply a divorce case. This is a case about a man who viewed his wife as a means to an end, who married her for money, who abused her for years, who tried to kill her when she became inconvenient, and who has spent every moment since trying to destroy her through lies and manipulation. She turned to look at Harrison directly. Harrison Caldwell is not a husband. He is a predator. And today we ask this court to finally hold him accountable. Harrison's lead attorney rose for the defense. He was expensive, renowned, the best money could buy. But even he could not make this case look good. He tried to paint Harrison as a devoted husband driven to desperation. He tried to suggest that Grace had exaggerated or invented her claims. He tried to create doubt about the evidence. It did not work. Judge Hartley had heard enough lies in his 30 years on the bench. He could spot them a mile away. And Harrison's entire defense reeked of desperation and deception. When both sides had finished, Judge Hartley called a recess. 3 hours, he said. He needed time to review everything one final time. Grace spent those 3 hours in a small conference room with Caroline and Nathan. She could not eat, could barely drink the water Nathan kept pushing toward her. Whatever happens, Nathan said, you have already won. You survived, you have hope. That is what matters. I know, but I want him to pay. For Catherine, for Rachel, for all the women he has hurt. He will, Caroline said. The federal charges alone will put him away for years. And if the murder investigation finds what we think it will find, he will never see the outside of a prison again. At 4:17 in the afternoon, they were called back to the courtroom. Judge Hartley took his seat. The room fell silent. Grace could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. I have reviewed all the evidence presented in this case, Judge Hartley began. I have considered the testimony of witnesses. I have examined financial records, communications, and expert opinions, and I have reached my decision." He paused, looked at Harrison. "Mr. Caldwell, in my 30 years on this bench, I have seen many cases of marital misconduct, infidelity, financial deception, emotional abuse, but I have rarely encountered a case as thoroughly reprehensible as yours." No, Harrison's lawyer tried to object. Judge Hartley silenced him with a look. "You married this woman under false pretenses. You subjected her to years of psychological manipulation. You conspired to steal her child. And when she became an obstacle to your plans, you attempted to murder her in the most cowardly way imaginable. You left her to freeze to death in a blizzard, carrying your unborn child." The judge's voice was heavy with disgust. "The fact that she survived does not diminish the severity of your actions. It merely means that Providence intervened where you failed." He turned to his prepared statement. "In the matter of Mitchell versus Caldwell, I find as follows. First, the marriage is hereby annulled on grounds of fraud in the inducement. Mrs. Mitchell entered this marriage based on deliberate misrepresentations by the respondent. The prenuptial agreement, which was obtained through the same fraudulent conduct, is therefore void and unenforceable." Grace felt Caroline squeeze her hand. "Second, Mrs. Mitchell is awarded sole legal and physical custody of the minor child, Hope Mitchell. Mr. Caldwell is denied all visitation rights. This denial is permanent and irrevocable unless and until Mr. Caldwell can demonstrate, through extensive psychological evaluation and supervised assessment, that he poses no danger to the child. Given the evidence presented, I consider such a demonstration extremely unlikely." Harrison's face was gray. His lawyers were furiously taking notes. "Third, regarding the division of assets, given the fraudulent nature of this marriage, I am awarding 70% of all marital assets to Mrs. Mitchell. This includes the family home, which has already been sold, investment accounts, and Mr. Caldwell's share of the proceeds from Caldwell Industries prior to its dissolution." Judge Hartley looked directly at Harrison. "You sought to acquire a fortune through deception and attempted murder. Instead, you will lose everything you have. I find this outcome appropriate. Fourth, Mr. Caldwell is ordered to pay child support in the amount of $12,000 per month until the child reaches the age of 18. Failure to make these payments will result in immediate contempt of court charges." The judge set down his papers. "Finally, I am formally referring all evidence gathered in this case to the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the State Attorney General's office. The financial crimes revealed in this proceeding warrant thorough criminal investigation. I am also forwarding relevant materials to the cold case unit investigating the death of Catherine Wells." He looked at Harrison one last time. Mr. Caldwell, you believed that your money and your power placed you above the law. You believed that you could manipulate and destroy anyone who got in your way. You were wrong. The law applies to everyone regardless of wealth or status. And today, the law has found you wanting." He banged his gavel. "This case is closed." The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the doors, desperate to file their stories. Harrison's lawyers huddled around him, speaking in urgent whispers. Caroline was smiling. Nathan was on his feet, moving toward Grace. But Grace sat perfectly still. It was over. After everything, after all the pain and fear and fighting, it was finally over. She had won. Not just the case, not just the money. She had won her freedom, her daughter's safety, her future. Tears streamed down her face. She did not try to stop them. Nathan reached her, pulled her to her feet, wrapped her in a hug so tight she could barely breathe. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it." "We did it," she corrected. "All of us." Carolyn joined them. Then Patricia, who had slipped into the gallery for the verdict. They stood together in a small circle of victory and relief. Across the room, Harrison was being led away by his lawyers. He looked broken, defeated, a shell of the man who had once controlled Grace's entire world. He caught her eye as he passed. For a moment, something flickered in his gaze. Hatred, maybe, or regret, or just the emptiness of a man who had lost everything. Grace looked away. She did not need his emotions. She did not need anything from him anymore. "Let us go home," she said. "Hope needs to be fed." They walked out of the courthouse together, into the sunshine, into the crowd of reporters shouting questions, into the rest of their lives. Grace said nothing to the press. She just walked, head high, shoulders back. A woman who had survived the worst and come out stronger on the other side. The car was waiting at the curb. Nathan held the door for her. Patricia was already inside. As they pulled away from the courthouse, Grace looked back one last time at the building where she had fought for her life, at the steps where Harrison Walls had once stood so confidently. Then she turned around, faced forward, and did not look back again. 1 year later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of Grace's new house. Not Patricia's house anymore. Her own house, a 2-bedroom cottage on a quiet street at the edge of town. It was small, the kitchen was barely big enough for 2 people. The backyard was more weeds than grass. The paint was peeling in places. Grace loved every inch of it. She had bought it with money from the settlement. Not the mansion she could have afforded. Not the luxury condo Caroline had suggested. Just a simple house on a simple street where she could raise her daughter in peace. Hope was awake. Grace could hear her babbling in the nursery through the baby monitor. Happy sounds, morning sounds, the sounds of a child who had never known fear. Grace padded down the hallway in her bare feet, pushed open the nursery door. Hope was standing in her crib, holding onto the rails for balance. 13 months old now, walking and talking and getting into everything. She had Grace's dark hair and Patricia's stubborn chin and a smile that could light up the darkest room. "Mama," Hope said when she saw Grace. "Mama up." "Good morning, sweetheart." Grace lifted her daughter out of the crib, held her close, breathed in that perfect baby smell. "Did you sleep well?" "No," Hope said firmly. Then she giggled as if she had told the funniest joke in the world. They had a routine now. Breakfast first, then playtime, then a walk around the neighborhood if the weather was nice, then nap time, then more playtime, then dinner, then bath, then bed. Simple, predictable, exactly what they both needed. Grace carried Hope to the kitchen, set her in the high chair, started making oatmeal while Hope banged on the tray with her spoon. Through the window she could see her garden. The tomatoes were coming in nicely. The herbs were thriving. Patricia had taught her how to plant them, how to nurture them, how to help them grow. Metaphors everywhere, Grace thought. Her whole life had become a garden, pulling out the weeds, planting new seeds, waiting patiently for things to bloom. The doorbell rang. Grace wiped her hands on a dish towel, walked to the front door, looked through the peephole. Nathan, still in uniform, holding 2 cups of coffee from the shop on Main Street. She opened the door. "Is this bribery?" "This is a concerned brother checking on his sister and niece." He handed her a cup. "The bribery is just a bonus." He came inside, went straight to the high chair. Hope's face lit up when she saw him. "Nah," she said, her word for Nathan. She had not quite mastered the "thee" sound yet. "Hey there, princess." Nathan kissed her forehead. "Are you being good for Mama?" "No," Hope said proudly. "That is my girl." Grace poured the oatmeal into a bowl, added some mashed banana, set it in front of Hope, watched her daughter attempt to feed herself, getting more food on her face than in her mouth. "So," Nathan said, leaning against the counter. "Big day today?" Grace nodded. She had been trying not to think about it. The sentencing. "Are you going?" "Caroline said I do not have to. The victim impact statement I submitted will be read by the prosecutor." "That is not what I asked." Grace looked at her daughter, at the oatmeal on her cheeks, at the joy in her eyes. "I do not know," she admitted. "Part of me wants to see it, to watch him hear his sentence, to finally see justice. And the other part? The other part never wants to see his face again." Nathan was quiet for a moment. "I'm off today. I can watch Hope if you decide to go." "You do not have to." "I want to. Besides," he grinned, "I promised to teach her how to throw a football. Today seems as good a day as any. She is 13 months old. Never too early to start." Grace laughed. It felt good to laugh. It still surprised her sometimes how easy it had become. For so long, laughter had felt impossible. Now it came naturally, like breathing. She thought about the past year, about everything that had happened since the verdict. Harrison's federal trial had lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Rachel Simmons testified about the financial crimes. Michelle Wells testified about Catherine's death. A parade of former employees told stories of intimidation and corruption. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: money laundering, wire fraud, tax evasion, obstruction of justice. 12 felony convictions in total. The prosecutors had pushed for the maximum sentence. Today, they would find out if they got it. And then there was the other case, the one that still kept Grace up at night sometimes. Catherine Wells. The cold case unit had reopened the investigation. New evidence had emerged. The mechanic who serviced Catherine's car had finally talked. 30 years of guilt had loosened his tongue. Harrison had paid him to tamper with brakes. $20,000 to kill an innocent woman. The murder charge was still working through the system. The trial would not happen for another 6 months. But the evidence was solid. Harrison would spend the rest of his life in prison. One way or another. Grace finished her coffee, looked at the clock. The sentencing was at 11. "I'm going to go," she decided. "I need to see it end, really end." Nathan nodded. "I will be here when you get back." Grace showered and dressed, put on the same navy dress she had worn to the final hearing. It felt like armor now, like protection. She kissed Hope goodbye. Her daughter waved from Nathan's arms, already distracted by the funny faces he was making. The drive to the federal courthouse took 20 minutes. Grace parked in the lot behind the building, sat in her car for a moment, gathering her courage. She thought about the first time she had walked into a courthouse. Terrified, uncertain, sure that Harrison would find some way to win. Now she walked in with her head high. She knew how this story ended. The courtroom was packed. Media filled every available seat. This case had become national news. The billionaire who tried to murder his pregnant wife. People could not get enough of it. Grace found a seat into the back. She did not want to be noticed. She just wanted to watch. Harrison was brought in a few minutes later, wearing an orange jumpsuit now instead of a tailored suit, hands cuffed in front of him, flanked by U.S. Marshals. He looked old, so much older than the man she had married. His hair had gone gray, his face was lined, his shoulders slumped with defeat. Grace searched herself for some feeling. Satisfaction, maybe, or pity, or anger. She felt nothing, just a vague sense of closure, like finishing a book she had been reading for too long. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The proceedings began. The prosecutor spoke first. He detailed Harrison's crimes, the scope of the fraud, the number of victims, the utter lack of remorse. "Your Honor," he concluded, "Harrison Caldwell is not simply a white-collar criminal. He is a predator who used his wealth and power to destroy anyone who got in his way. He defrauded investors of millions. He corrupted public officials. He attempted to murder his pregnant wife. And evidence strongly suggests he is responsible for the death of Catherine Wells." He paused for effect. "The government recommends the maximum sentence on all counts to be served consecutively. Mr. Caldwell should never again have the opportunity to harm innocent people." Harrison's attorney rose for the defense. He tried to argue for leniency, cited Harrison's lack of prior convictions, mentioned his contributions to charity, suggested that he had already suffered enough. The judge looked unimpressed. Then came the victim impact statements. One after another, investors who had lost their life savings, employees who had been threatened and intimidated. Michelle Wells speaking for her dead sister. "Catherine trusted Harrison," Michelle said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "She loved him, and he killed her for it. He took her from me, from our parents, from everyone who loved her, and then he went on living his life as if nothing had happened." She looked directly at Harrison. "You are a monster, and I hope you spend every day of the rest of your life remembering what you did." Grace's written statement was read next. She had spent weeks crafting it, every word chosen carefully. "Harrison Caldwell married me for money," the prosecutor read on her behalf. "He manipulated me, isolated me, and abused me. He tried to kill me and our unborn daughter. He left us in a blizzard to freeze to death. I survived. My daughter survived. We are building a new life, a good life, a life free from fear and manipulation. But I will never forget what he did. I will never forget standing alone in that storm, certain I was going to die. I will never forget the look in his eyes when he left me there. I do not hate Harrison Caldwell. Hatred requires too much energy, and I have better things to do with my life. But I do believe in justice, and I believe that he should face consequences for his actions. Whatever sentence this court imposes, it will never be enough. It will never bring back the years I lost. It will never heal the trauma. It will never undo the damage. But it will be something. It will be a statement that this kind of behavior is not acceptable, that wealth and power do not place you above the law, that victims matter. Thank you. The courtroom was silent when the prosecutor finished reading. Grace could see people wiping their eyes. Even the judge seemed moved. Finally, it was Harrison's turn to speak, his last chance to address the court before sentencing. He stood slowly. The chains on his wrists clinked. His voice was hoarse. I made mistakes, he said. I know that now. I hurt people, people who did not deserve to be hurt. He looked toward the gallery. His eyes found Grace's. I am sorry, he said, for everything. I know you do not believe me. I know I do not deserve forgiveness, but I am sorry. Grace held his gaze. She did not look away. She did not react. After a moment, Harrison turned back to the judge. I accept whatever punishment you decide. I deserve it. He sat down. His attorney whispered something in his ear. Harrison shook his head. The judge took a long moment to review his notes. The courtroom waited in tense silence. Finally, he spoke. Mr. Caldwell, I have presided over many cases in my career, cases involving fraud, violence, and betrayal. But your case stands out as particularly egregious. He looked at Harrison with undisguised contempt. You are a man who had everything: wealth, power, a family, and you threw it all away because you wanted more. You lied, you cheated, you stole, you attempted murder, and you showed not an ounce of genuine remorse until you were caught. Your apology just now rings hollow. It is the apology of a man who is sorry he got caught, not sorry for what he did. The judge picked up a paper. On count 1, wire fraud, I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison. On count 2, money laundering, I sentence you to 15 years to run consecutively. On count 3, tax evasion, I sentence you to 10 years, consecutive. On count 4, obstruction of justice, I sentence you to 5 years, consecutive. Grace did the math in her head. 45 years. Harrison was 53 now. He would be 98 before he was eligible for release. He would die in prison. Furthermore, the judge continued, you are ordered to pay restitution to all identified victims in the amount of $47 million. All remaining assets will be seized and liquidated to satisfy this obligation. Harrison sat perfectly still. His face was blank, as if he had not heard, as if none of it was real. Mr. Caldwell, the judge said, you will be transferred to a federal penitentiary to begin serving your sentence immediately. May God have mercy on your soul, because this court has none. He banged his gavel. Court is adjourned. The marshals moved forward to take Harrison away. The courtroom erupted in murmured conversations. Reporters rushed for the exits, desperate to file their stories. Grace remained in her seat, watching. Harrison was led toward a side door. Just before he passed through, he turned back, found Grace's face in the crowd one last time. She expected to see hatred, or desperation, or pleading. Instead, she saw nothing, just emptiness. The hollow gaze of a man who had lost everything and finally understood it. Then he was gone. The door closed behind him, and Harrison Caldwell disappeared from Grace's life forever. She sat in the courtroom for a long time after everyone else had left, processing, breathing, letting it sink in. It was over, really over. Harrison would never hurt her again, would never threaten hope, would never cast a shadow over their lives. She was free. Grace stood slowly, walked out of the courtroom, down the marble hallway, through the heavy doors, into the sunshine. Caroline was waiting on the courthouse steps. She had not attended the hearing but had been following the news. How do you feel? She asked. Grace thought about the question. How did she feel? Relieved, exhausted, empty, full, all of it at once. Like it is finally finished, she said, like I can finally move on. You can, you have. They hugged, Two women who had started as attorney and client and become something more like friends. "What will you do now?" Caroline asked. "Go home," Grace said. "Hug my daughter. Maybe plant some more tomatoes." "That sounds like a good plan." Grace drove home slowly, taking her time, noticing things she had not noticed in months. The way the sunlight hit the trees, the smell of fresh-cut grass, the sound of children playing in a yard. The world was beautiful. She had forgotten that, somewhere along the way. Harrison had made her forget. Now she remembered. Nathan was in the backyard when she got home. Hope was on a blanket on the grass, surrounded by toys. A tiny football sat beside her, untouched. "So much for the football lessons," Grace said. Nathan grinned. "She prefers the blocks. I think she is going to be an architect. Or a demolition expert. She mostly just knocks them down." Grace sat on the blanket beside her daughter. Hope immediately crawled into her lap, demanding attention. "How did it go?" Nathan asked. 45 years. He will die in prison." Nathan nodded slowly. "Good. That is good." They sat in silence for a while, watching Hope play, listening to the birds, feeling the sun on their faces. "Do you think it will ever feel real?" Grace asked. "The fact that it is over?" "Eventually. It takes time. But eventually." That evening, Patricia came over for dinner. She brought pot roast and mashed potatoes, Grace's favorite since childhood. They ate in the small dining room while Hope made a mess of her high chair. After dinner, they sat on the back porch. Three generations of Mitchell women watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink and purple. "Your father would be proud of you," Patricia said quietly. "He always said you were the strong one." "I do not feel strong." "Strong is not a feeling, it is a choice." Grace looked at her mother, at the gray in her hair, at the lines on her face, at the fierce love in her eyes. "How did you do it?" Grace asked. "After Dad died? How did you keep going?" Patricia smiled. "I looked at you and Nathan. You needed me, so I kept going. One day at a time." "Was it worth it?" "Every single day." Hope reached for Grace, wanting to be held. Grace lifted her daughter onto her lap, felt those tiny arms wrap around her neck. "Mama," Hope said contentedly. "Mama home." "Yes, sweetheart, Mama is home." 3 months later, Grace stood in the coffee shop that used to be an abandoned gas station. The same place where Harrison had left her to die. The same place where Nathan had found her. It was called Last Stop Cafe now. Someone had bought the property and renovated it. New windows, fresh paint, a cheerful sign. Nothing remained of the place that haunted her nightmares. She had driven out here on a whim, following some instinct she did not fully understand. Something had called her back to this place. Some need for closure. Hope was in the car seat, babbling at her stuffed elephant. 16 months old now, growing so fast. Every day bringing new words, new discoveries, new joys. Grace ordered a cappuccino, sat by the window, looked out at the road where she had once stumbled through a blizzard, certain she was going to die. The shop owner came over, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and flour on her apron. "You look like you have a story," she said. Grace smiled. "I suppose I do." "Want to share it?" Grace thought about the blizzard, the rescue, the trial, the verdict, the long, slow process of rebuilding her life. "I almost died here once," she said. "A year and a half ago, my husband left me in a snowstorm. I was 8 months pregnant." The woman's eyes widened. "I remember that story. It was all over the news. The billionaire who abandoned his pregnant wife. That was me." "My goodness." The woman sat down across from her. "What happened to him?" "He is in prison. He will be there for the rest of his life." "Good. That is exactly where he belongs." The woman looked out the window. "I bought this place because I wanted to give it a new story, a happy story. It was just sitting here, abandoned, full of bad memories. I thought it deserved better." "It does look different. Places can change. People too." The woman smiled. "You look like someone who has changed." Grace thought about who she had been, the frightened wife, the isolated victim, the woman who had lost herself in a fairy tale that turned into a nightmare. And then she thought about who she was now, a mother, a survivor, a woman who had walked through fire and come out the other side. "I have," she said. "I really have." She finished her coffee, left a generous tip, carried Hope back to the car. Before she drove away, she looked at the building one more time. At the cheerful paint and the new windows and the people inside laughing over their drinks. The worst night of her life had happened here, and now it was a place of warmth and welcome and second chances. Maybe that was the lesson. Maybe that was what she was supposed to learn. The darkness never lasted forever. The storms always passed. And in the end, even the most broken places could be made beautiful again. Grace started the car. Hope kicked her feet happily in the back seat. "Where to, baby girl?" Grace asked. "Home," Hope said clearly. "Mama home." Home it is. They drove into the sunset, a mother and daughter, survivors, fighters, a family of two that felt bigger than any mansion ever could. In the rearview mirror, Grace watched the coffee shop disappear, watched her past fade into the distance. Ahead of her, the road stretched on, full of possibility, full of hope. She was not the same woman who had married Harrison Caldwell. She was not the victim he had tried to create. She was not the corpse he had tried to leave in the snow. She was Grace Mitchell, mother of Hope, daughter of Patricia, sister of Nathan. She was a survivor, and she was just getting started. The sun sank below the horizon. The first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Hope fell asleep in her car seat, peaceful and content. And Grace drove home, to her little house, to her garden full of tomatoes, to her life full of people who loved her. It was not the fairy tale she had dreamed of as a girl. It was better. It was real. And that is how Grace Mitchell took back her life. From a frozen gas station in the middle of nowhere to a courtroom where justice finally won. If this story moved you, if you felt Grace's fear and triumph, I have one small favor to ask. Hit that subscribe button. Join our family of listeners who believe in justice and second chances. Leave a comment below. Tell me what part hit you the hardest. Was it the moment Nathan found his sister? The courtroom victory? Or little Hope saying mama home for the first time? I read every single comment. Your words keep me going. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story today, someone who feels trapped, someone who thinks they cannot escape, share this video with them. Because Grace's story proves something important. The storm does not last forever. Help always comes. And the strongest people are the ones who refuse to give up. Thank you for staying until the end. You are the reason I tell these stories. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, no matter how dark the night, the sun will shine. See you in the next video.